Hey y'all, welcome back to Planet Coaster Miniatures. This is Fallen Rocks, episode 8, Wheat Ocho. In today's episode, we're going to do two things. We're going to work on decorating the interior of our living quarters, and we're finally going to get to the station. And I sketched out some ideas for what I want to do with that. I think it's going to look good. So I'll just briefly show you what I've done since the last time, since you weren't looking. I went ahead and added a little door here just to make it look a little more finished. I love these little rope tie things. I don't know why. I did some more landscaping here around the edges just to fill it in a little bit more. And one thing I did is add a walkway over here. I put a chipped beef in here, and now we've got people walking back and forth. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the path exactly even with this, so the only way that I can fix that is to separate. You can see this is all one big building. So the only way I can do to fix that is to separate this into two buildings and lower this one down a little bit, which I might do actually, just to make it look a little bit better. We'll see if I get bored with this or not, but for now, I just like the bit of life that it gives the project, seeing people walk around and so forth. I was looking at it over here, and I just like the way it looked to see people walking up through here and along these paths here. So I thought, let me go ahead and put a chip beef over here so we can see some people walking over there. So that's everything I've done since the last time. Let's go ahead and get started on decorating the interior.
All right, so here we go. Like I said, the first thing we're going to do is decorate the interior of these living quarters. I decided to put some sort of a system up at the top of the structure so that I could hang some lights up here, because in the last episode I put those those torches down on the ground, and they really don't look good. I like the way the light looks on the inside, but it just doesn't look right, and obviously you're not going to have torches that close to where people are going to be walking. So what I did was I set this system up here, and then I got some lanterns and hung it from it. Unfortunately, they're pretty small lights, and they're not high wattage, I guess. So they don't really light up the interior enough, which you'll see in just a minute when I get something up here. First, I was trying to find some way to string up some sort of hanging light. I used in a previous project I worked on called The Underground, which was set entirely underground. I created a system of hanging lights that hung all the way from the top of this cave down to the bottom, and that helped illuminate the entire structure, and it worked out really well. So I was trying it here, but unfortunately it didn't fit. So stuck these up here, took out the torches to see what it would look like, and it's pretty dark. So I think what I'm going to do is a trick that I've been doing for some time, because as I said in a previous video, I don't really like the sort of yellowish cast that these lights in Planet Coaster have. It's appropriate in this situation because of the theme that we're going for here, the sort of native village. So I'm just going to use an old trick that I have, maybe other people use it as well, where you take the smaller lights and you just have to sort of bury them in the floor. That way you can't see them, but they still give off the same amount of light, and it looks as though the light from the interior, the top, is lighting up the entire structure. Unfortunately, I don't do that in this episode. I'll do it in the next episode, and you'll see that then. What I'm doing right now is just creating, I thought, well, if they're living in here, they need a place to sleep. So I'm creating a sort of a cot or a trapeze. What a trapeze? What the hell am I talking about? Just a sort of hanging bed for them to lay in. So I make one and then stretch it all the way down for several people. This comes out all right. Once we finish all this, if you have feedback on the interior, I'd be glad to hear it, because basically what I did was, and you'll see this in just a minute, is I took just a bunch of stuff and set it around, just like things I would imagine, barrels and things like that I would imagine they'd have in here. I don't think it looks that best. It looks really lived in, if I'm going to be, I guess, diplomatic about the way I say it. But it really just kind of looks like things scattered around with no purpose. So I might have to correct that. Although there is one thing I put down in just a minute, and 1,000 points to anyone who can guess what these things right here are supposed to be. I know what they are in the game, but if you can guess what they're supposed to be in this little region, you get 1,000 points. So here you can see I am starting to put the barrels down, put wood, like some lumber down. I'm going to put down in a minute, just some stuff scattered around a little bit to make it look like there's something going on here. Again, it looks messy to me. I might redo it. One thing you should know about my builds is sometimes I'm like, it looks good enough, because I play this game mostly for fun, for relaxation. I'm not really trying to be a perfectionist about it. I mean, I try to do an all right job with it, but I'm more along the lines of, oh, you get the idea of what's going on here. So, but if you have some suggestions, I'd be happy to hear them. I always like to get feedback from people, anything positive or negative, so long as it's constructive. So if you have anything to say, that's cool. And sorry, one other thing I should add is after I recorded the first part where I was showing you how I put the trail and so forth outside to the chip beef, I went ahead and lowered all that structure like I said I was going to. I made it out like it was going to be some big deal, but it actually took all of like a minute maybe. So that's now lowered so the people aren't walking through the floor. Looks a lot better. I don't remember if you'll see this or not in any more of this footage, but we'll take care of that. It'll show up sooner or later in one of my videos. So here we are, finally, time to work on the station. I didn't really have an inspiration for this. What I had more of an idea of what of the adjectives that I would use to describe the station. I wanted it to be grander than anything else we had going on here. So we have buildings that are very simple in their structures, and not that this one is going to be highly detailed, but since I was working with the idea that this was going to be in our little village, some sort of place where they go to worship or perform ceremonial things or something like that, I wanted it to be different enough from the rest of the village, but still somewhat within the same style. So I think I was moderately successful with it. Once we get most of this done, there is one complaint I have about it, and I think it's a fair criticism, and I can see people leveling it against it. So once we get to it, I'll discuss that. Well, I can go ahead right now and just say I think the style of it might be too different from everything else. It almost looks more what's the word? As though it were from an island or something like that. It looks like South Seas almost to me, or what is stereotypically depicted as South Seas. So it might be a little bit too different. I did make one change to it to make it a little bit better, which you will see in the next episode. But overall, it looks all right. I like it enough that I'm going to keep it the way it is. If someone says, that it looks a little bit out of place, I'll say, yeah, well, I agree. Maybe they, for all I know, they took a boat trip down to the islands or something like that. Who knows? But I know I wanted it to be red. I wanted it to be colorful. Number one, to stand out from everything else in the village and to indicate its presence as a different sort of building. And then again, I'm going with that theme of them having these sort of muted colors and so forth scattered throughout, although this color is a bit brighter than the rest. And the other adjective that I was going to use to describe this, I said grand, and I really wanted it to be a structure with a tall roof. I'm by no means archaeology expert, or not archaeology, excuse me. I'm by no means an architecture expert, but from studying art history and so forth, I know that oftentimes particularly in religious structures, the idea of the building is to lead your eye upwards. So I wanted this to be sort of a cavernous space with a very tall ceiling, angled, so that when you're inside of it, your first thought is to look up and see the top of the ceiling. So that part of it succeeds, I think. I like the way it looks from the interior, and I like the way it looks from the exterior. So, and then I also did something here, you'll see in a minute. I was a moment ago going out the whole building and then kind of putting another roof on top of it, because as you'll see, that's what I end up doing with the structure. That was one of the ideas I had, to just make the structure a little bit different. And also it kind of gave me the impression of someone, very abstractly, obviously, and you see I'm doing it right here, very abstractly, of someone being on a horse or something like that, someone being mounted on top of something. And I like the way it looked. It gave it some dimension to the building, and it's just about to happen in just a second or two. I was trying to get the perfect placement, perfect recessing, and remove some of it, so it gives a hint of a shadow, it gives some texture. I just like the way it looks. So that's one aspect that was successful. And then once I start decorating the building, you'll see some other things I did. So overall, like I said, this is going to take up the bulk of the episode from now on. Of this episode anyway, I'm going to continue the landscaping of the bottom and so forth off camera, just because I don't think it's that exciting. So what I'll do is, in the start of the next episode, we'll do a quick sort of live shot of everything that's been accomplished so far. Excuse me. And then I added some of these cross beams, which are functional, and also I think stand out, or serve to make the building stand out a little bit. I continued this sort of X bracing that we used in the living quarters, just to make it inspired by that double lean-to. And in just a moment, I am going to use some ropes to create horizontal elements across the building, just to add that little bit of interest. Now, obviously, the chandeliers are not appropriate for this, but I wanted something hanging like that is appropriate for this type of structure. And as far as I know, that's about the only thing we have in here that looks halfway okay. So that's what I'm going to use for now. I might look around and see if I can create something better. And then I had the idea of extending the structure out the back. First, you can see I'm putting the front and back face on the building, and this takes just a minute. And I'm going to do a design on here. I'm going to attempt to do a design on here because I thought it looked pretty plain. Unfortunately, the design was not very successful, and I took it out. I probably should just delete the footage, but I thought, well, maybe somebody will like it. Maybe somebody say something like that looks good, or you should do this, or you should do that. So if you have a suggestion that you think it would go along with this better, I'd be happy to hear it once again. But for now, it's just going to be plain, which you'll see in just a few minutes. So as I said, I do like the general way that the building ended up. It's just a little bit different from the rest of the village itself. But we'll see. Maybe it'll grow on me. It's not that I hate it. It's just it's a little bit different than what I imagined. I do like how it fits into the sight lines, how it fits into the landscape, and so forth. So we'll see. And what else we're going to be doing. So this is going to be the rest of this episode. And I still have a long list of stuff I want to do with this park. This miniature, as I'm calling it. And a lot of it is detailing. So I think I will, at some point, I did say I wasn't going to show too much more of landscaping and things like that. But I think at some point, when I start to get to the point where I'm just kind of putting the final polish on it, I will do an episode of just nothing but that. Show me putting the landscape, the lake, and the buffaloes or bison that I intend to create. But it is starting to come along. I've made some good progress on this. I'd say it's probably about 70% complete right now. And I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm getting to the point now where, I say this a lot, and I am getting to the point now where I'm getting a little bit tired of it. But I'm still working on it. I'm going to finish it up. Don't worry. It'll be all done, and then I'll move on to the next project. And I have some ideas for projects after this. I'm waiting for... I would really like it. My ideal thing would be if No Limits would go ahead, or No Limits 2 would go ahead and release their next update that had the RMC pack, but update, which I'm assuming they'll have at some point. It's been sort of hinted at and promised and so forth, so I don't know when that's coming, but I've never actually done an RMC, especially not an FED, and I want to try that. So that's one thing I'm thinking of. I'm also thinking of maybe doing a B&M Hyper in No Limits 2. And I've got some ideas for or other little things that I could do in Planet Coaster as well. So I've got a long list of stuff that I want to have upcoming. So we'll see what we work on next. I was thinking about actually having 2 projects running simultaneously, and then maybe one day I could post an update to this, and one day I could post an update to the other. But I don't know if that'll work out for me too well or not. So for now, we're just going to finish this one up, and we'll see what happens. But I am going to have footage, like I promised you. I am going to have footage of various parks and so forth when I start going to parks when they open up around here. And the first one I'm going to, I received my final invitation. I mentioned this in another episode, but I received my final invitation to the Twisted Timbers Media Day on March 22nd. So at this point, we're only talking about 2 weeks from today, as a matter of fact, when I'm recording this, that is. So I'm looking forward to that, although it starts really early. I usually get up early anyway, but I have to be at the park, I believe, by, is it 5:45? So I'll probably have to get up just a little bit earlier than I normally do to get there. But it's going to be, I think, pretty much an all-day thing, at least until noon, I'm assuming, or so. And we're going to get to ride Twisted Timbers. We're going to get to be recorded on it while we're riding it, and I think they're also going to have that Wild Mouse ride they have. They're going to have that open, the Apple's Apple, as they call it now. And also the Eiffel Tower is going to be open, so I should be able to get some good footage from that. I'm looking forward to it. So I will definitely have some sort of video for you all, either on the 22nd, well, actually, I'm just going to say I'll have it ready for you on the 22nd. I'll come home and get everything up and upload it. So as soon as it's ready, I'll release it. So you can be on the lookout for that. But with all that said, we are here finishing up the building. Again, I went with this theme of the cow skulls on the front of it just because I think they're really cute. And I think these people would probably revere them. And then that's pretty much it. So I'm going to close with some cinematics. And I will see you next time. Enjoy the ride.
Varför den? Varför?